Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 31 of season 2 of Gunners and Blues. My name is Sean Morgan. I am joined by Andrew Gump. It is our Chelsea-centric episode for the end of the week, and it has been a week to forget, I would say, for Chelsea hopefuls. Andrew, how are you hanging in there?
You know, oddly, it hasn't been as painful to me as it has apparently to a lot of the social media followers out there. I mean, it's probably been offset kind of by just, basically putting in 40 hours of New World, although half of that has been time spent in Q.
Hey, that Q boss, man. The Q boss is brutal. Should we
Yeah.
should we recruit from our podcast?
Well, you know what? Why not? Why not? Anyone want to play New World with the guys, with the Gunners and Blues squad? Hop on, play, send us a message. We would love to meet anyone that's listening that we don't know personally. It would be awesome.
Yeah. US East, Ruach. We are a syndicate. Faction choice.
Yes, we are.
No,
and I am less toxic than Sean.
Hey, what are you talking about? I do occasionally say some shit in chat just because I can. But yeah, we'll just reach out to us on Twitter. DM us.
Let's just talk about New World, not about Chelsea.
Yeah. Okay. This is now officially a New World podcast. But no, we are here to talk about Chelsea. So I do have normally with the Chelsea episodes we don't I don't usually run down an agenda, but I did want to kind of highlight a few things. We're going to talk about the Juventus match and how I think frustrating certain aspects of that were in regards to some individual performances and some team selection issues, I think. And Lukaku just playing in Italy, or playing Juventus specifically, is just always, I think, weird for him. But I do, we're also going to talk, he kind of hinted at it, the social media presence, I think. Chelsea specifically, but, I do want to talk a little bit, I think, about general toxicity on social media in regards to like club supporters at least. And then of course we'll preview the match against Southampton and talk a little bit about team selection. But let's dive into the 1-0 loss to Juventus. I think it was a very frustrating match to watch. There are instances where I don't think you guys necessarily played poorly or Juventus played exceptionally well. I feel as though there was just this unseen barrier that Chelsea couldn't really deal with. And I don't know if it's maybe an emotional thing where, there could be some fatigue setting in for certain players. And that's kind of starting to bleed over. And some of, especially, in regards to team selection, I realize how crucial Mason Mount is to everything that you guys do.
It's hard to argue against that. But if you look at the squad that we're putting out and the players, we're not getting the best out of them. And honestly, if you look at the people on the bench, let's. I'm going to dive right into it. Look at that starting 11, and we've discussed it. I don't think anyone that is a Chelsea supporter saw Hakim Ziyech and got excited or thought this is it. This is going to work out well. And lo and behold, it did not work out well. It did not work out well at all. And it's been very frustrating. I am a very big Timo Werner fan. And if you want to look at the start of our season, and remember, this is not Timo Werner over Romelu Lukaku, because Timo Werner did not play as a central striker for Chelsea for the most part. He really didn't. He very rarely was right down the middle. The amount of chances that we are creating has gone down so drastically, even though it's actually been a pretty good start to the season. The amount has gone down so drastically, and there's only been one player that has been changed. It's Timo Werner. Legitimately, I know we missed Mason the last couple of games, but he was pretty poor against Tottenham, if you want to be honest with you. Really, really poor against Tottenham. And it's one of those things that when you see this idea that Timo Werner is wasteful, which he is, that he's not easy on the eye, right? He doesn't, when he does something, it doesn't like, wow, that was smooth, that was silky, that was, he's a Bentley. No, he's he's like, how do you put it?
He's like a drag car, right? He's gonna blow out the engine and he's gonna go straight. It's not gonna be the flashiest race, but he's fast.
He's kind of like a Honda Civic. It's kind of way like he's reliable. It's a little zippy back and forth like that. But listen, you're not gonna win any you're not winning cookies. No one's gonna be like, wow, that's Honda Civic. Bam, that's great. But at the same time, he's doing the job. He's getting you from A to B. He's opening up space. It's one of those things you get a little tired sometimes of this idea of like flair and style in players all the time. I love an industrious worker on the pitch. I really, really do. I prefer a player that when I watch, and this is why I'm such a big fan of Marcus Alonso, when I watch them out there, they legitimately are putting in a shift. They may not look great on the eyes. They may look, Alonso looks gangly and out of position many times, but he's doing a huge amount of work. I mean, he ran the second most of anyone in the Man City game, and everyone was on his back about, oh, he looks disinterested. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of that part. But anyway, we'll get back to more on the Juventus. The starting 11 I was not impressed with. I think Jorginho, I know people are always back on the Jorginho. I'm not on the Jorginho hate train, but Jorginho, people have kind of given him a pass because of what he did last season, and that's perfectly fine. But at the same time, if he is going to be so unwilling or unable to press, which is a very big part of Thomas Tuchel's tactics, we are going to look bad. We're going to continue to look bad.
I mean, there were multiple instances where he was dispossessed. Like, he was so easy to press for pretty much that in like the entire time. I don't know. It almost because I mean, if you go back and you listen to some of our earlier episodes from last season, I mean, you obviously weren't too high on the Jorginho train, and we saw a lot of the same thing where it was so easy to get in his face and bully him and force him to either play a bad pass or have a bad second or third touch, and he would give up possession in a crucial part of the pitch. So I think what really, I know there was a lot of frustration for Chelsea fans around, Ziyech and Havertz, but I really feel like defensively your midfield was just so, I don't know, lacking.
We lacked legs. We lacked legs 100%. Because Kovacic... Yeah. Oh, I mean, Kovacic covered so much space in that game, and Jorginho was like a little circle in the middle. Just like, how about going outside of the center circle? I mean, like I said, I don't want to hate. I don't want to hate on Jorginho. He's done so much for us, but it was one of those things when I saw that line, I was like, oh shit. I was thinking maybe Lofty gets the start here. He'd shown that he could work at a 6. He'd been very good when he'd come on. Thomas Tuchel had been talking him up, but it was revert to type. It was back to the tried and trusted. And what teams have done this season, we had like 78% possession. This is one of those games, if we had lost, if Pep Guardiola had lost it, he'd be like, we played amazing, we passed the ball, we have so many chances, we just don't make them, and all they do is long balls. Tuchel wasn't like that, thankfully. He realized we didn't play up to our standards. But at the same time, with 78% possession, Jorginho is going to have enough touches that he should have been involved. But he was pressed out of it every time. The pitch was so congested because there was zero movement from Lukaku, Havertz, and Ziyech. Now, Lukaku isn't trained to move too much, right? He was brought in to be a focal point in our attack, which means he stays central for the most part, which is perfectly fine. But then that requires your two other attacking players to move. Well, Hakim Ziyech just wants ball to feet at all points in time, and Havertz stopped moving at some point in time in the match, somewhere around the 15th minute, apparently, because I didn't see him do too much. And it was just so little movement. And that's, I think, one of the reasons that made Jorginho look worse than maybe we saw last season, because the front three was so fluid, especially with Timo making runs in behind. You can't congest the pitch. You can't, because there has to be players covering those runs. There's no runs made. So then that means that midfield three of Juventus can just press. And it is not a good midfield three. Locatelli is a good player, but Rabiot's shit. I think he's a terrible player. How he's made it into the teams that he has is beyond me. And Bentancur, who is really bad as well. It was just one of those things. We didn't play well. And even then, we probably should have got a draw out of it. If you look at the chances that we missed at the end, and they fell to the players you wanted them to fall to, Havertz and Lukaku. They both had very clear-cut chances, and they both, to use one of your favorite sayings, shit the bed.
Yeah.
They shit the bed. They really shit the bed. It was very frustrating. The fact, and also, I'm going to talk about the substitutions. How the fuck did Barkley get on ahead of Timo Werner? I don't care who.
I saw that. I was like, oh.
My eye started twitching. My eye legitimately just started twitching like mad. I was like, this is no way. What is happening? What is happening? And Barkley, to be fair to Barkley, he was probably one of the better players on the pitch at the time he was in there. He wanted it. But the fact that Havertz got chances later on. It's just very irritating, very upsetting to me. I talked about wanting Callum Hudson-Odoi from the start because I knew Juventus would be very defensive. We started with Azpilicueta, who had probably one of his worst games in the last year and a half. Really poor, really, really poor. Very indecisive. When we had a chance to cross the ball into Lukaku, he would take that extra touch and then cut back. It was very disappointing all around. I think the leaders that we needed, you look at Azpilicueta, Jorginho, and Thiago Silva, all performed below par. So it was a downer, but then I have to look at this, right? I have to look at this, and this week, if we beat Southampton, which we should, not going to do it, we should, and Man City and Liverpool play each other, and they, reasonably could draw. If you're just saying they're basically on par, we go top of the league. Barring Man United winning by 17 million. Some ridiculous scoreline. So is it really all doom and gloom? Well, according to the Twitter timeline, 100%. This is the worst thing that's ever happened, and this is a club in turmoil. And how did Tuchel? I'm seeing people talk about, I can't believe we sacked Tuchel. Sacked Lampard for Tuchel. I'm like, are you okay? We just won a Champions League. I don't understand. Some people are so out of their mind, and I'm going to talk about one of the things that has bothered me the most. Some of the biggest influencers on Chelsea's Twitter, a lot of the video makers, and have been so vehemently against players playing ahead of English players in our squad. And it gets really fucking frustrating. The amount of vitriol that Alonso garnered in that half a play. He was not good. I'm not going to say that he was not good. It was obscene. There's a guy, and I'm going to name and shame him because I was actually a huge fan of his originally, but he is, as he's gone up in popularity, he's become a very, amongst English fans, he's become very against anyone that's taking time from English players. And Ben Chilwell came on and played very well. And I'm very glad. I think maybe we will see him start against Southampton. We'll get more into that later. But every minute to 2 minutes, it was every bad thing Alonso did. And there's hundreds of people retweeting it, liking it, and it starts trending on Twitter. Marcus Alonso was one of our best players at the beginning of this season. Was extremely good for us. Yes, he has fallen off a bit. That's normal. All players do at a certain point in time. You're talking about a player in the last 5 years, a defender, the top scoring defender in the last 5 years in the Premier League, and that's with a couple of managers completely not rating him and not wanting to play him. He's still up there. So people have to – I get it. Alonso doesn't talk too much in the media. He has a history that people love to bring up without really even understanding what happened, which I find very disappointing. But it's been really disappointing watching some of the biggest names in Chelsea, YouTube, Twitter, just having a go at Alonso over and over again, having a go at Ziyech when you're looking at players like, Mason Mount was terrible against Tottenham. I think he's a great player, but he's terrible against Tottenham. Chilwell did not look good against Aston Villa in the game. So why, Tuchel starting Alonso wasn't too insane.
Yeah.
And the toxicity that you see, and it's a heaping sort of thing, right? It's definitely, I like to think of social media as school to a degree. Mm-hmm. There's that big time bully, and then there's like 10, in school, there's like 5 or 6 people around, like, yeah, the bully just talking all this shit, and then it was like, hey, yeah, you're an idiot. They don't usually use those words, but you know what I mean. And Twitter's just like an aggrandized version of that, just a huge version of everyone piling on. I want to give credit to Football Therapy, Totally Yannick, and George Benson. They basically stay out of that negativity. Big ups to them. If anyone uses YouTube, you look them up. They're great social Chelsea content. The rest of them, man, though, it's really hard. I know you get a lot of clicks and interaction, but hating on a player that has done so much for Chelsea. Like, legitimately, we won everything with Alonso in the team. Every single trophy you could want to, we've won. Oh, except for like the prestigious Community Shield. So yeah,
You can't win that.
that's a you can't win that one. But yeah, it was really it actually upset me more than the game in of itself, because if you look, we lost to Man City, which is, I think, always reasonable. Not great, but reasonable. And we lost to Juventus at home, where we had 78% of the possession and they scored on a counterattack. I mean, a great counterattack. Chiesa is a great player, but let's be perfectly honest. These are not, oh, the sky is falling sort of results. It's not good. Now, if we lose to Southampton,
Now, when
I
you
may
guys lose
feel
2-0 to Southampton, then that's when.
Yeah, then the sky is falling. Then I'll get up. But no, we have a chance of going, in my eyes, a very discernible chance of going top of the league come the international break. And then, what's so bad, right? What's terrible? What's going on? We've lost 2 games. It happens. We were just gonna go. Was this an invincible season? No, it's not gonna happen that way. I don't know. It's been difficult. Like I said, very difficult for me just watching the absolute vitriol thrown at players that maybe don't have the biggest online presence, or like the support from a lot of the online people. And I know you've had to deal with it, especially when things aren't going well with Arsenal. It makes it so toxic, man.
It does.
So toxic.
It's one of those things where, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, because we, kind of split everything up and talked about 2 different clubs. I've noticed the ebb and flow of listens really hinges on how well a respective club is doing. There are instances where, like the Arsenal episode started out really great, and then as the season progressed and things became rougher and rougher, it's tougher to talk about. And I think for social media, when things are going great, things are going, fantastic, but there's always people who can find negativity in whatever is going on. It's like, for example, I mean, we just basically slapped Spurs, and then people are upset that we didn't play with the same intensity for the entire 90 minutes that we did in the first 45. It's like, okay, well, what do you want? What is it that you're expecting? I mean, I doubt you could even run for 9 minutes, let alone 90 minutes for a lot of these guys that are talking shit. So it's really, though, it's just a matter of people will try and find, at least a good portion of people will try and find things to be negative about just so they can get attention. And it's frustrating.
Hey, that's one thing I can say about our podcast. We will just be honest with you. I think you could tell if you listen to our podcast, we are not very good at filtering ourselves, especially with our explicit language, but also we do try to be honest. And I think that's, for me, that was what I've liked about the Premier League. A lot of those supporters you see in the crowd are always very honest. If your team's not performing, if they are performing. Man, when you add social media into it, it's difficult. It is super, super difficult. But anyway, I want to veer away from that sort of negativity. It's not been an ideal week, but also, like I said, there's a redemption arc, right? There's a redemption arc. Just like any great anime character, there's a redemption arc coming. We like to believe, and I think that starts against Southampton. That was an okay segment. I'll take it.
There you go.
Segue.
You're getting there.
Yeah.
You're getting there.
I'm getting there. So we play against Southampton. The prodigal son, Tino Livramento, will probably be playing against Chelsea. And if he puts in a masterclass, the worst part, I'm going to go right back into social media. The worst part is going to be all these, I told you Tino Livramento should have stayed. It's like, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me right now. So I personally do not want Tino Livramento to do well, because I don't care if I'm right or wrong. I just want Chelsea to win. And that should probably be it for most supporters. Anyway, we go against Southampton, who have not looked great this season. And you can see, I think Hasenhüttl thought they were going to do really well at the beginning. He's coming out in his little 3-piece, whatever, made him look like an Austrian dwarf or something like that. I have no idea what he was going for at the beginning, but now he's just back to tracksuits because things are not going as well. I always like watching like the sartorial changes of managers as the season starts out bright, and then all of a sudden, Just go down, tracksuit, so on and so forth. But anyway, so we start against Southampton. I'm gonna say it. Timo Werner's getting a start. He's getting a start. Thomas Tuchel has seen that you cannot play an out of form Hakim Ziyech and an out of form Havertz. So interesting enough, apparently Gareth Southgate has some sort of information no one else has. He said that both Reece and Mason might have a chance to start this game. I have not seen this anywhere else. Thomas Tuchel did not seem to believe it, but he also named both of them in his England squad. So maybe he knows something that we don't. And I think if Mason Mount can start for Chelsea, he will start because we obviously have not performed particularly well without him. And by not perform, we haven't won a game without him. So I do think we see a front three of Timo Werner, Romelu Lukaku, and Mason Mount. This is something I've asked for from the beginning of the season. I really just please, just give it to me. Just give it to me one time. I do think we see one Benjamin Chilwell get the start, so that should make many people happy. It makes me happy, right? I know Benjamin Chilwell is the future of that role, but I want him to be ready and I want him to be fit and firing. He looks very good. Don't do that. Don't do that. I don't foresee Alonso getting a start. I mean, being hooked at halftime is basically the Thomas Tuchel kiss of death. It's like, well, I'm done with you. I mean, that's what happened to Tammy Abraham twice, and now he's at Roma. So that's you can see the pattern there. Chilwell started. I do think we see a change in left wing back. I don't think to see Azpilicueta come off that early in the match, I don't think Thomas Tuchel was very happy. So I do think Cal Hudson-Odoi does get a start at wing back. I just don't see us risking Reece James going into international break.
No.
I don't see it, but I also do not think that Tuchel was very happy with the very reserved nature of Azpilicueta's performance. It wasn't that he was bad in any particular way, but it was always the safest option,
it's the lack of urgency, I think, that you see sometimes, and there are instances where that's great, and then there are instances where that backfires. So
yeah. So you see, Cal Hudson-Odoi comes in. He was great. Both Chilwell and Cal Hudson-Odoi were amazing when they came on against Juventus. They both created the most chances. They were the top two chance creators. Chilwell for half a game and Cal Hudson-Odoi for like 25 minutes. So very impressed with that. The back three is a really hard one to call. Really hard one to call because I don't think that Thiago Silva performed that well. I'm obviously sticking Rudiger in there because we just don't have anyone that can replace Rudiger. I'm wondering if we see Chalobah come in. What do you think? Do you think we see Chalobah come in after Aspie getting hooked? Maybe just give him a rest during the leading into the international break, and Chalobah performed very well when he came on. What do you think?
I can see it. I think that this is a weird situation, right? Because in a lot of ways, this is a lower risk match. So if you're going to put in anybody that isn't in your preferred 11, you could do it here. Southampton have actually played you guys very well at Stamford Bridge the last couple of years. They have drawn twice and they've won once in the last 3 matches at Stamford Bridge, which is, means, and this is a lot of the same players. Like a lot of, Southampton hasn't had, I mean, they've had turnover, but, for a lot of these guys, they've been here before. So I don't know, especially if, Tuchel might feel like things are not necessarily slipping away, but you don't want to go into international break on a bad note. So
100%.
So if he thinks that Silva is the best choice, regardless, I think, of the situation, I think we could see that Silva, Christensen, Rudiger back 3. But if he feels like what, like I think that Silva needs a break. I think this is a chance for Chalobah to shine, and it's not like Chalobah's been bad. I think really in any match that he's come in for. If anything, the only time he's ever really looked, poor are instances where, like, maybe the entire team has looked, subpar. So I can definitely see it, but again, it all hinges, I think, on how Tuchel looks at this match, in regard to going into the international break on the up and up.
Yep. Well, I think it's going to be Christensen in the middle, Chalobah out in the left. I mean, right, sorry. And then I think the midfield pairing, like I said, I feel like Tuchel was very upset with that performance. It was the first time we'd seen him really upset in Chelsea color, as a Chelsea boss. And I do think we see Ruben get the start as well next to Kovacic. And I know people are going to say, well, Kovacic gave the ball. Kovacic is still putting it. He's the only one that was pressing in that midfield. Only one that was pressing in that midfield for most of that game. And is very important. So I do think we see a RLC Kovacic midfield pivot. Would make me happy. I know I'm predicting a lot of, very strange changes. But at the same time, I feel like we need to freshen it up to just get over the line here. I think it's a 2-1. Yeah, I think we get a 2-1 win here. I don't think we're going to keep a clean sheet. We've had a couple of little gaffes in us. I do think we get a 2-1 win here. And, we go in possibly top of the league. Not really performing like we should be top of the league, but top of the league nonetheless. What's your prediction for the match, Sean?
I'm going to break your heart. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I think that there's this kind of weird disconnect right now between how I would say your attacking players are performing relative to one another. Sometimes it seems like I don't know. If we go all the way back to your transfer window, not this past transfer window, but the one last season, where Lampard brings in all of these players. I'm like, it's going to take some time to really get them to gel, and it did. I feel like with Lukaku coming in and having such a different way of playing, that I don't feel like you guys have fully integrated him into what it is, like how you want to execute the game plan. There are instances where Lukaku has been brilliant, but I think that's Lukaku. That isn't necessarily a product of the system, but a product of the circumstance. So I do wonder when that clicks. Is it going to be in this match? I don't know. If Mount starts and, presumably he's going to be playing, then I think you have a much higher chance, because I think he just simply links up so much better transitionally between like your midfield and your attacking wing backs to Lukaku and to making things happen, having that spark. You're going to laugh. I honestly think that when Pulisic comes back, I think that might actually help a little bit as well, in that he's going to be able to draw a little more attention. You have players like Havertz and Ziyech that I don't really think pull attention away in the way that they should.
Well, you have to move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one thing you can say about Pulisic, even though his off-the-ball movement may not necessarily be as great.
Yeah.
On the ball, he is generally able to pull a defender, and potentially pull another defender out of position. And so I really feel like, I want to see Mount, Pulisic, and Lukaku in the same lineup. I think that would actually, be really great for you guys. But
Me too.
It's at this point, it's just a matter of, how much can that click. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I think that, we see a couple of missed opportunities. I am going to predict maybe a Ward-Prowse free kick, extraordinaire, and, something where, Mendy's outstretched, just can't deal with it. I really struggle to see, I think, how Southampton generates a lot. So I think their opportunities are going to be fewer and further between. But I think there might be this situation where Chelsea isn't really able to put away the game in the manner that they should. And kind of what we've seen over the last couple of matches, just this general lack of urgency. And I'm hoping for your guys' sake that you do pick up a win, because I think, again, going into international break, you always want to end on, go in on a high note rather than a low note. And I think a draw, even though it's not the lowest note, would just feel like a continuation of the recent frustration. So again, for your sake, I'm hoping for a win. Realistically, this feels like a bit of a trap match, and and we'll see how things go. We'll see how things. Last time I predicted something like this, you guys, slapped 3-0. So
yeah. That's what I'm hoping for. I'll take a 3-0 right now. I would love to be wrong about the 2-1 and take a 3-1. Thank you, Sean.
See, now that I mentioned it, it can't happen. So Watch, instead it'll be a 4-0.
Edit it out. Edit it out.
Yeah,
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, no, that's it for us for the week.
Yep.
As always, I want to thank Particle Docs for our great intro and outro music. If you haven't already, please subscribe to us on your preferred podcast platform. If that is YouTube, because you've been watching us on YouTube, then again, hello, I'm waving. We want to thank you. Please subscribe, leave a comment, leave whatever the heck it is that you can leave for YouTube, and we will be back next week. We will, considering going into the international break, it's always kind of a weird time for us. So what we probably will do is do our regular Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday episodes, and then we'll see what news happens. We may do like a Thursday combined episode if we feel like there's some news that's warranted. Otherwise, as we hinted at the beginning of the podcast, we have been playing a lot of New World. So if maybe we can record while we're fighting the Q boss, then we'll go through and do that. So. On behalf of Andrew, my name is Sean. We are Gunners and Blues. We are signing out. We will talk to everybody next week. Have a good one.
See you guys.